So we have this thing going on at home right now where we just had a moratorium approved by 90% of 90% of the aldermen of the council in Rock Island, Illinois.
Oh,
except for my mom. My mom's gangster and said no. But they pretty much had this moratorium where they pretty much essentially shut down all services for the unhoused, whether that be like detoxing, like living quarters, food pantries, everything, and pretty much said like for the next month and a half or 2 months, I know it's going to be sometime in October, they're figuring out what to do and how to kind of regulate these like services that are in Rock Island and all that, because they don't want to shoulder all of like the unhoused community in Rock Island and all these things and that and the other. And like a lot of the city has been kind of like, that's like a lot of the citizens have been like, this is dumb. Why are y'all doing this and that and the other, you know? And like at the forefront, we've had like certain aldermen who kind of like have spoken up about it, and like they've been very philosophical and smart about it. But again, like it's still like in a way of them saying like, oh, this is good for the unhoused community because we need to figure this out. So we got, even though it means taking them out of their places of living and their detoxification, putting them on the streets where they could possibly get like raped or anything like that. They're like, we got to do that. And for me, I'm like, that's stupid. Why don't you just leave the services here while y'all figure it out? And when y'all figure it out, you go to these services and be like, hey, these are the new regulations and all that of like how we want things to be treated. So like, can you guys do the work of like adjusting whatever it is you have kind of set up now because of the new regulations we have, as opposed to being like, okay, y'all are gonna have to sleep outside for the next month and a half and find places to sleep and find places to piss and have possibly more cops involved, have people arrested.
True.
You know, it's just like that. It's like, but again, that's what happens when you have like smart thinkers who can't think critically. It's just like, because for me, I'm like, you know, I've never been in that space of like being in that political space, but I don't think you have to be able to see like, why can't y'all just do both? Like,
well, I mean, frankly, I don't think most people in government actually are that smart. I mean, that's just my honest opinion. I really don't think that. You know, like I will say, and you probably disagree with this, but like I can't actually see like an argument for like cutting those programs, just because like, yes, that will be a result, but like also things are gonna then be cheaper for everyone. Like we're not going to be putting as many taxpayer dollars towards that, so then like people are in theory going to save more money. I mean, the problem is also you still have the state, so it's like, okay, is the state really going to give that money back, or are they just going to put more money into their own pocket? Like that's a very messy thing that I don't also agree with. It's hard because you have this like government entity that like basically monopolizes that whole thing. Yeah. Because if private entities want to do that, it either has to be through the church, or they have to, if they set it up privately, they have to have all these regulations and like they have to have people inspect it, and there's like all these like loopholes that make it much harder for them to do that than the government. Like the government is just there. It's like, okay, we're gonna use taxpayer dollars to create a homeless shelter, and that's it. And then if business owners are like, hey, we don't like the homeless in the streets, we want to make like a shelter or like a soup kitchen, like they have to go through all these same loopholes, which is going to be expensive, and you know they're not really going to be, I mean, it's just not going to be cost effective. So yeah, I mean, I personally kind of see the other side of the argument, but I do think that is a problem though, is like when you have like this government entity that is supposedly going to care for everybody, and then they just decide not to, people don't really have options because that's like the system, that's like the standard that's been set. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you're saying you're saying more so like the moratorium makes sense in that, or?
Well, I can see the flip side of like, or not the flip side, but I can see the argument for like, you know, cutting these programs, because in essence it does, like, because, you know, these programs, it creates tax dollars, and if there's no tax dollars involved, they just inflate the dollar, and then like everything's just more expensive for everyone, including those people who are at the bottom who rely on these, you know, because they need food or whatever, and it's going to be more expensive for them to do that also. So, and I don't know. I just don't think that like it's a sticky situation to like really think about and grapple with, right? Yeah. Because you can see the side of the aisle where it's like, okay, you cut out the funding and like it makes things cheap, you know, ideally makes things cheaper, and then these people who are suffering can still have that. But then the opposite end of the aisle is like, if we put more money into that, then like it's more expensive for everyone, and then including those people.
Yeah.
And then you're relying on that system.
Yeah.
To deliver on everything, which it never does.
Yeah.
So then you have the problem where it's like, okay, we're going to control this sector. We're going to control we're going to control helping the homeless or the impoverished or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if they don't deliver on that, but then also have all these restrictions set up where like a private entity can't come in and like solve the problem, then you have a real problem in your hands. And that's when you have like mass homelessness on the street, and it's like, well, who's going to take care of this? Mm-hmm. It's like the people you are relying on to take care of this, who not only you're relying on, but are not allowing anyone else to help.
Yeah.
Like then you just create like a cesspool of problems.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. And that's my whole thing is like, it's kind of like two things with that for me. Cause I definitely understand the other side, especially cause Rock Island right now, like they're broke. Everything, they're very broke.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anybody will say it, but Rock Island is broke and they need money, and they're tapping into this capitalistic part, which I'm like, I tell people all the time, like, I don't think capitalism is wrong. It's how you like kind of go about it and all that. And for me, when I kind of look at it about from that standpoint, it's like, I get that. And I guess the question for me is like, is it worth the risk of like the possibility of like what will happen to like human life during that like time of making the decision? Because again, it's just like one of those things, like people, like one of the people who came to kind of speak at the city council meeting last week before they made this decision was someone who was like a homeless person in the Quad Cities who like, got all the services they need. They now have like a job, they have a family and all this. And they came in to share the story of like, I had a friend who got raped literally in their unhoused,
Oh yeah. That's another thing that happens.
That's a reality. So it's like, for me, I'm like, I don't get so like kind of caught up emotionally in it, where like if I ask like if that's something that you're okay with while making a decision, you got to sit with that though. Be honest with it, that you said like, okay, I made this decision even though I knew that this could happen, or this could kind of like make it where like police get involved with like arresting more homeless people and all that, or makes it where like more buildings are getting broken into and all that because they don't have anywhere to stay.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
it promotes crime because like they know like if in jail I can at least get a bed or like a cot and even like a stone, like a stone with a pillow and like 3 meals a day.
That's been my whole thing looking at it. It's like, wouldn't you rather have the unhoused community have a place to go as opposed to like being in random places while you're making the decision and like, leaning so hard into like the desperate survivalism of like, oh, I'm just going to break into this fucking building because it's cool as fuck and I'm just going to be in here. It's just like, if you're okay with that being a thing, then, I have nothing to say to that, but be honest to yourself. That's what it is at the end of the day, with that. And then on top of that, like with kind of like the entities that we've had in the Quad Cities who serve the unhoused community, and like even the newer ones, and mind you, there's some new ones that I'm skeptical of because I see kind of the capitalizing of something more so than like being there.
Sure.
But I digress, on that. But it's like we have we have nonprofit organizations that like have literally like, I shouldn't say nurse because I feel like that's a better term than that, but like for lack of a better term, like who have nursed back the unhoused community to like detoxify them, provide them this stuff so that their mental is right enough to like do what they need to do, get a job and all this, and like I've seen people who have worked in the unhoused community make it where like these unhoused community individuals now have homes to live in and are like mentally there because of what they have. And now, does that mean that everybody's going to be there? It's kind of like what I was saying earlier about the lazy kid. Like, no, there's some people who are going to use the system and just be lazy, and that's with anywhere. Have that anywhere.
No, that's inevitable.